Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, madam.
Good afternoon.
Okay. So let's begin. Today we would be looking at performance evaluation and feedback as well as organization change. I'm hoping to cover these two units in today's class. Now, so to begin with, can I know what is your idea of performance appraisal or performance evaluation? Anybody?
Basically, we can say that it is the level of responsibility that they have met with the organization's expectation.
Level of responsibility with the organization's commitment. Okay.
They have met, like, I mean, everybody, yeah, if they have met or not. I mean, based on the percentage of responsibilities that they have met that they are assigned for, right? So basically, based on that one, we can say that whether they have performed well or not.
Fair enough. Well said. Thank you. So basically, we are all working in an organization, and how do the organization know that are we able to meet the? Good afternoon. So how do we know that how does the organization know that we are able to meet the outcome in the way which was set? How does the organization get to know that we are able to meet the productivity, we are able to meet their standards, and so on? That is one reason why performance appraisal happens, and also for promotion basis, and also to understand what are the skills that are required, where's the gap, and how the gaps could be filled through training and so on. So that is why performance appraisals or evaluations are done. But what exactly is performance appraisal or evaluation? It is a method of evaluating the behavior of employees in the workspace, which includes like quantitative as well as qualitative. So it is basically a systematic and ongoing procedure that evaluates an individual's job performance, productivity with the predefined criteria or the standards, the goals, which are set by the organization or that particular process. Then apart from, performance, apart from the what is required to do a job, and apart from the set standards, performance appraisal is also done on the behavior of the employees, their attitude towards the organization. Then evaluation could be done with regards to the organization citizenship behavior, the accomplishment, the strengths, and when even the weaknesses all these are taken into consideration during the performance appraisal. So generally, organizations conduct the appraisal process once a year, but it again differs from organization to organization. I mean, the frequency of the performance appraisals that happen, it differs from every organization. Then, now, performance appraisal is also a method of evaluating the behavior, like I said, in terms of the job, how well an employee is performing in the job, how well the employee is behaving with his subordinate or the co-worker, and it's also a part of the development which the employee is showing in the organization in terms of like skill development, personal development, the growth in the organization, all these, and also his or her contribution towards the particular job. Now, what are the features of performance appraisal? One, it's a systematic description of an employee's job, relevant strengths and weaknesses. Basic purpose is to find out how well the employee is performing the job and establish a plan of improvement. So through performance appraisal, they're able to understand where does this employee stand in terms of his work, his duties. Is there any scope of improvement? If there are any mistakes, why the mistakes have been conducted? So analysis could be done and a feedback can be given to the employee so that he could perform better, and obviously the outcome will be better. The outcome is better, the productivity increases, and so on. And also, it refers to how well someone is doing the assigned job, but not the job evaluation. That is, job evaluation determines how much a job is worth to the organization, and therefore what range should be assigned to the job. So, like I said, it's not only the job what they are doing, it's the overall that is counted in the performance appraisal, and it is a continuous process when it comes to performance appraisal. It's not just once the appraisal has happened and then it stops over there. So every year, like I said, some of the organization opt for performance appraisal, and every year there is something new to learn and so on. So what is the purpose of performance evaluation or appraisal in the organization? One, for promotions, transfers, and terminations. So if an employee has been working really hard and has been doing extremely well compared to the other employees in the team, then probably, and he has been working in that position for, let's
Please,
say,
madam, page number, please.
I am sorry, I don't have the page number. You can check your book, textbook. The chapter is performance evaluation and feedback. 21, if I'm correct. Okay. So I was saying, if this person is in the same position, let's say for like 3 years, and obviously he's looking for growth within the organization, and he has proved himself many times in terms of his work and so on. So he should be eligible for promotion. Now, how do we know that he's eligible for promotion? Based on the evaluation, what happens during the performance appraisal. Now, transfers, it could be for performing really well, and there's another branch which requires that person's skill and experience or expertise. Then via performance appraisal, they can get to know who is most eligible to be there, and transfer can happen. Transfer could also be due to lack of performance as well, and termination definitely due to lack of performance in spite of giving multiple trainings, and if still the employee is unable to perform well, then it leads to termination. Another purpose of performance appraisal is to identify the training needs for the employees. We all know that the technology keeps changing. There's always something new to learn, so we can't have the old set of knowledge and continue to work in the same way. So with the help of performance appraisal, the knowledge gap or the lacuna can be identified, and the necessary training can be provided for the employee for better performance and in the organization. Then performance appraisal also helps in providing feedback to the employees. That will help the employees understand where they are standing as of now, what can be done to improve on their performances, or to change their respective behavior towards the co-worker, or change their attitude, and so on, and improve on themselves professionally and personally, and also to improve the interpersonal relationships. Then reward allocations, all of us expect some kind of rewards apart from salaries if we are working in an organization. Now, if I have been doing extremely well, then, I expect some kind of reward. So reward could be in terms of recognition and just a certificate that is being given to my organization that satisfy my needs, or it could be an extra bonus what I get for performing really well. It could also be in terms of some coupons which could be given for my performance, which where or it could be incentives that is given. So all these could be tracked, all these could be given based on the performance evaluation. Now, performance appraisal and motivation, or performance evaluation and motivation. If you have done the motivation chapter, you must have also studied the Victor Vroom's expectancy theory. So appraisal and expectancy theory go together hand in hand. Now, every individual, according to this expectancy theory and performance appraisal, so every individual puts in some effort. If they are putting in effort, that means the individual is trying to do well and his performance can be seen. If the performance is better or best, then the organization rewards should be given to the individual. And if organization rewards are given, the individual is motivated to work. So probably that could be his personal goals. Now, we must understand that performance is a vital component of this theory of motivation, expectancy theory. And we must also clearly understand that every individual needs to understand what does the organization expect from them when they are on the job. What they must also understand, how is the performance evaluation being conducted, and that will give them an idea of how much effort to put in to that particular job. What are the capabilities that they can reach that results in the satisfactory performance as set by the company standards. And based on that, they will start putting in the effort, and then that's how, based on the performance, rewards would be assigned to them by the organization, which will internally fulfill the person's goal, or which will motivate them because of the rewards given to them. And individuals must also have this faith within them that, okay, if I perform better, the organization is going to give me the rewards that I desire. So if they have faith in that, definitely they will put in the effort. Now, if we look at this theory of expectancy of motivation, so it is very much evident that performance appraisal is based on the expectancy model of motivation. So in case if the individual is unclear of the standards or the expectation or the objectives or the criteria to measure the performance by the organization, then the individual will not put effort. If there's no effort, then there is no performance, no rewards, and hence the personal goal is also not met. So they might be stuck in the same position for a longer time, and obviously they would want to move to another organization. Now, if they are looking for a growth in the same organization, then it is mandatory for them to understand what are the clear objectives and standards set by the organization to put in equal amount of effort. Now, so we have till now covered like what is performance appraisal, how it can be how is it related to motivation, and what is the purpose of the performance appraisal. Now let us look at who should evaluate us as in the employees. Who should evaluate the employees for the performance appraisal, or before who should evaluate the employees. So if we are looking at who should do the evaluation, first, immediate supervisors. Why are we insisting on immediate supervisors? Because they are the ones who would be observing you. They are the ones who will be observing your behavior. uh, they are the so they you will be directly reporting to them and not to the manager. Hence the manager doesn't have much idea about what you're doing, or your work, or because the manager probably sees you only once a while. But your immediate supervisor, that is your team leader, or anyone whomever you're reporting to, knows your work well and understands you, is has been observing your interpersonal relationship with your subordinates, and has an overall idea of what you're doing in the organization. So one immediate supervisor. Peers is one of the most dependable source of appraisal, you could say, because peers, for starter, again there are plus and minuses for both. So if you're looking at peer, they understand, they have a clarity, they exactly know how much you're working. Even if you're going home and working, probably your immediate supervisor might not know about it, but your peers definitely will have an idea. And because you may end up interacting with them daily, you may be working along with your peers, so definitely they would want to rate you higher on the performance appraisal. Now the drawback here is, peer evaluation could be also be due to, because you're their friend, they would want to rate you a higher rate, because they want you to rate them higher. That could also be a reason why they are rating you a higher rate, unless and until they are very much following the standards of the appraisal format. Now, self evaluation, a very important part of performance evaluation. It is always advisable by the organizations that during the performance evaluation, there should be like a different evaluation method, or different category should be kept, like one for the immediate supervisor, one for the peers, one for self evaluation, and so on. Why is self evaluation important? Because one, you know the amount of work you are doing, you can justify your work, you can you know how to explain the work, the kind of work you're doing, and hence you are like self empowered. You would also be able to manage your own self. So that's one of the reason why self evaluation is important. Now, again, in self-evaluation, because it's performance appraisal and you would be scored, there are chances that the individual might evaluate himself or herself on a higher score rather than giving a moderate score, because sometimes the performance appraisal is not only just related to your increment in the salary or just your general evaluation. It could also be related to transfers, or promotions. It could also be related to a higher percentage of salary. So based on the ratings what you get, so the higher would be the percentage of increment in the salary. So that's one thing. Then the next is immediate subordinates. The direct subordinates are another source of judgment when it comes to performance appraisal. So they claim that they tend they are more. There will be more transparency when you are when they are rating you. So they would be more honest about the kind of work they are doing, and also it gives them the sense of empowerment that yes, I am also part of the appraisal process. Now when we are talking about the immediate subordinates, it uh, again, there might be issue about the negative feedback. If me and my subordinate are not going well together, so we don't know how they are rating us on the performance appraisal. Then the next one is a 360-degree evaluation. Instead of being evaluated just by one person, let's say like by the immediate supervisor or only by the peer or only by the immediate supervisor and peer or only self-evaluation and the supervisor, 360 degree is a 360-degree evaluation is a process where instead of being evaluated by one person, it would be evaluated by several people who are working in the organization, not only those who are above you in the organization, well, that is your manager and so on, but also those who are working with you, that would be your subordinates, your peers, and also those who are working under you. Probably if I'm the manager, my team members could also evaluate me in the 360 degrees evaluation. So the purpose of this is to ensure that employees get feedback from all the directions. That includes, like, like I said, supervisors, reporting subordinates, co-workers, peers, and even also, you could also include the customers over here when you're taking the 360-degree evaluations. So if it's conducted in a right way, in a correct manner, this 360-degree valuation technique furnishes managers with range of insights on their performance in a number of roles. That will also give them an idea of where they are lacking and how they could perform better or improve themselves. So the next, let us see, like, what do we evaluate in the performance appraisal? So, we have spoken, okay, appraisal can be done by all these people, but what exactly do they evaluate? First, goals or KRAs, which is also known as key result area, or KPIs, which is also known as key performance indicators. So the organization can give a set a goal, and the employees or the managers can have these key performance indicators designed for themselves, or sometimes the organization designs certain key performance indicators or the key result areas. So that means you have to set a goal. Based on those goals, there would be sub goals, and based on the sub goals, you'll be like, okay, in this particular year, this is the goal, then these are the sub goals. So maybe I have to, if it's in the sales department, let's say for example, in 1 year I have to make sure that I bring in 3 new products to my process. That could be the sales manager goal. And the other goal could be like, in the next 6 months, I should ensure that there are at least for these 3 new goals, whatever I have bought in, these 3 new products, whatever I have bought in, I need to ensure that there is at least 80% of sale which is happening within the 6 months of time. So these are some of the goals which are set, goals and sub goals by managers, subordinates, and so on. And during the performance appraisal, you will be evaluated on these key result areas or the key performance indicators. Now, when you are setting a goal, always make sure that you set the goal in this acronym of SMART. They are called as SMART goals. SMART goals, S stands for specific. Make sure when you're writing your goal statement, when you're writing your objectives or goals, let them be specific, be very specific. What 3 products are you going to bring to your organization? Then measurable. Make sure your statements are always measurable quantitatively. How can we measure your performance? That is also very much important. So if the measurable here in this example could be like making 80% of sales. So I can measure by the end of the year whether you have really made 80% of sale or have you made less than 80% of sales. Then attainable. It's okay if you do not make your, if it is okay if you don't take too broad or too many things. Make sure you are able to achieve that goal, attainable or achievable. That is, make sure that the sentence what you're putting, the goal what you're saying, that is achievable in this particular year. So just because you have to say, you can't say I'm going to bring in like 5 new products to my organization or 10 new products to my organization within 1 year. Maybe that is not achievable for you. So keep it short, that is okay, but ensure that you at least meet those goals. It is better if you perform more than that. So if you bring more than 3, that is still better. But if you're mentioning something, make sure you attain that goal. So always have it like achievable goals. Then are realistic. Make sure your goals are realistic in nature. Just don't say, okay, by in this year I'm going to overtake another company. Is that even possible? Is that really possible? We don't know. We don't know how the circumstances are. Like for example, the pandemic came, and if I would have set my goal like in 1 year I'm going to attain, I'm going to overtake like 5 companies, then that would not be realistic. It would be impossible. Then time bound. T is for time bound. So always have these goals time bound. So like I said, if you're saying in 1 year you will be achieving this, then in your sub goals you can say like by end of 6 months I will at least have 40% of my sales going high for the 3 products which I will be bringing in. Or for the next 3 months I will be able to achieve at least 50% of the target for at least one product. So have it time bound when you're setting your goals. The next one is individual task outcomes. When you are setting your tasks, your goals, your KRAs, your KPIs, then make sure the outcome is measured individually also. How personally are you going to grow in this during this process? What is the experience and outcome you're taking from this process? How is that going to help the organization and you as an individual? These are some things you need to see. Then behavior. Employees are also rated on their behavior, their actions, employees' actions. How are they behaving in a certain situation? How are they helping the subordinates? Are they helping their co-workers? Are they able to manage well in the stressful situation? Are they coming to the office regularly? Are they maintaining their timings? All these can also be measured. Then traits. Traits is characteristics again. You're also evaluated on that. So it could be your attitude, your confidence, your experience, how you're bringing in your experience, how you're managing a situation, your personality. All these things are also rated during the performance evaluation. Now, now there are different methods of performance appraisal or evaluation. So it's not just, we just take one, you saw like what you would be evaluated on, right? So there can't just be one method of evaluation. So hence there are like different methods. I think in your syllabus, very few methods are covered and I will just be covering those, but this is again just for your information. You can go and, read more on these. If I am measuring your trait, then the trait methods include graphic rating scale, ranking methods, paired comparison method, force distribution method, checklist method, essay or free form of appraisal, group appraisals, confidential reports. Then if I'm measuring your behavior or evaluating your behavior, it could be behavioral checklist method, critical incident method, behavioral anchored rating scale, which is also known as BARS, behavior observation scale, assessment center, and psychological appraisal. And if I'm measuring your results or your outcomes based on your work, then I'm going to use a productivity measure, balance scorecard, human resource accounting, management by objectives. So these are some of the methods of performance appraisal. So these are the ones which are covered in your syllabus. The first one is written essays. So this is the simplest form of performance appraisal. where they have to write a narrative description about the employee's performance, which includes like employee strength, weaknesses, past performances, potential suggestion for improvement, and so on. And the strength of this method lies in the simplicity. It requires no complex forms or extensive training to complete this kind of evaluation. And it is valuable in providing specific information which can be easily used as feedback, and which can be understood by the employees on what basis have they been evaluated. And it can also the weaknesses here would be like, again, it could be subjective in nature, and sometimes it may be difficult for an employee to understand why have certain points been not covered, and so on. So this is an example of essay method where you could write regarding the ratings that has been given. The second one is a critical incident method. This is again an example of the critical incident. So this is a performance appraisal method that focuses on the key behaviors that makes the difference between doing a job effectively and ineffectively. So these the critical incident method are focus on the behaviors of two distinct areas, the outstanding behavior and the questionable behavior. And this method of appraisal is based on managers spending time during the year observing and gathering behavioral data on their employee while looking extra carefully for those critical incidents. And in the end of the year, these managers, they take all the notes, and then they categorize them as either satisfactory behaviors, or you could say like positive behaviors, or they can rate on the rating scales. And the employee's rating is then influenced by the data that is collected based on the satisfaction and not satisfaction. And so like I said, if you have looked at the methods, this comes under the behavior method. So here is one example. In case of there was a fire or a sudden breakdown or an accident, what did this employee do? So the manager has noted it down, and based on the reaction, the rating has been given on the scales which has been given, like worker A, B, C, what have they done, and so on. The next one is the graphic rating scale. This is how a graphic rating scale looks like. See, you need to understand, like every organization has a different rating scale designed. So this is just an example of how it looks like. The graphic rating scale, this method involves assigning some form of rating system to the traits which are present. So rating can be numerical, let's say like from 1 to 5, or it could also range from the categories like, satisfactory, not satisfactory. Like here, in this here, it is like outstanding, good, average, poor, so on, excellent. So this method can be simple, and to set it up also, it is very easy and easy to follow. Again, this can be subjective, because I might think something when I'm rating you, or it might be I might not be able to define the criteria properly, or your abilities, whatever you're showing, because it in general it is I'm rating you on those criteria. Next is the behavior anchored rating scale, which is also known as BARS. So this is an appraisal method that uses quantified scale with specific narrative examples of good and poor performance. So it's not just I'm rating you, but I'm also giving you in terms of like on what am I rating you for. So based for, here's an example. The dimension is work scheduling, and I have clearly mentioned here what does 1 mean, what does 2 mean. Instead of just saying poor on work scheduling, instead of just rating you poor, good, outstanding, I'm explaining what is required, and based on this I am going to rate you. So to develop a bar, you need to keep in mind the following things: generate critical incidents, that is behaviors or critical incidents, like in case of so and so situation, how does the employee have to behave. Develop performance dimensions, that would be like these things: the job dimensions, performance dimensions, and so on. Then relocate incidents. It could be like, instead of this, I could just change it based on the exact amount of requirement for that particular dimension. Then once I develop this instrument, I can start rating the employees. Now, what are the advantages? Advantages of using this particular method: one, it gives me more accurate gauge to understand what I'm rating on. Here the standards are set very clearly. Then feedback is given while the rating is done, and independent dimensions are there, and there's always consistency that will be maintained using this method. The last one is the forced distribution method or forced comparison method. So if you're looking here, I am forcing the employees into these categories. I'm distributing the employees into these categories. So this method is based on, after researches that were conducted in the military services during the World War series. So here, the evaluator will rank the individual work behavior between two or more states, and each state may be favorable or unfavorable. And the activity of the evaluator is to determine which state has an explanation of the employee most. And somewhere, uh, some people may not be able to perform well, but may be performing very well in other areas. So based on the areas, I'm actually categorizing into these, these compared methods. Now, how to avoid appraisal problems? First, learn and understand the potential problem and the solution for each. Why is this problem occurring? What is exactly the reason behind it, and what kind of solution could be provided? Using a right tool, an appropriate tool, is very much important during the appraisal. And also, before you're using a particular tool, you need to understand what are the pros and cons of the tool. For example, if you're measuring behavior, you cannot use another tool which is measuring a trait or characteristic. If you're measuring a characteristic, you cannot use a scorecard, which is going to measure your outcome of those standards that have been set for the job to perform. So it is very much important to understand what you would be measuring, what is the appropriate tool, and what are the pros and cons of the tool, and how you can make it more reliable for all the employers to use this particular tool. And now, again, to train the supervisors to avoid appraisal problem would be reduce rating errors such as halo, leniency, and central tendency. That is just rating them randomly, not even knowing who that person is. Sometimes this happens that, okay, there are like 20 people you have to rate, and you're caught up in work, and just because there's a deadline, you randomly rate something. So all these could be avoided, and the supervisors could be trained on importance and how the evaluation can be conducted. Have raters compile positive and negative critical incidents. So this would be like, always ensure that the positive and negative incidents are documented and compiled, and also explained to the employees whenever required. What are the suggestions for improving performance evaluation? Emphasize on behavior rather than the traits. how an employee would behave in a particular situation, irrespective of what the trait that employee or what personality does the employee possess. Document performance behavior in a journal if they are working on a particular. If behavior component is an important part of the appraisal, then the manager or the supervisor should document the behaviors in a journal under that employee's name. Use multiple evaluators, evaluate selectively, and the evaluator should be trained when using the evaluation method. Now, once the appraisal is done, the whole process of appraisal is done, it is very important to provide feedback to the employees. Most of the time, managers do not provide feedback. They just skip this particular step. It is always advisable that during the performance appraisal to have a one-on-one session with the employee. The manager and the employee can sit together while doing the performance appraisal, and one, the self evaluation can happen, and the manager the manager knows that the employee has rated himself or herself on so and so scale. Then the employee can justify themselves, and the manager can provide his observation and the feedback once the appraisal process is done. Now, sometimes, managers are scared to give this negative feedback to the employees because they may feel it may not go well, the employee may not be able to take it properly. So it is always advisable to use the word constructive feedback, where the manager gives this kind of a constructive feedback on improvement of the wherever the gaps are there, and the employee can take this constructive feedback, understand what is required, and that will help them perform better. Again, feedback is another important source in the performance appraisal, because if I'm just rating this employee 3 and I'm not explaining him or her why I have rated them 3 out of 5, then they will not know where to improve. They will not understand the gaps that are required. Then feedback will always give an opening for trainings, and will give an opening for skill development, personal and professional wise. This was about performance appraisal. Now, moving on to the next unit, organizational change. Now, change is inevitable. Everywhere there is change that happens. So, what exactly is organization change? So, it is a process in which an organization optimizes performance as it works towards becoming its ideal state. Now, organization change is a transition where an organization from one state of from one state of affairs to another, there is a transition that is happening, that is known as organization change. So organization change can come in like variety of shapes and sizes. It could be like a company structure has changed, strategy has changed, the change in rules, change in policies, change in processes, change in technology, or even change in the culture. So if one company has overtaken another company, so obviously the organization culture will change, the policies will change. Even if the company is trying to change according to the trends, then again there would be a change in the organization. Now, the change could be planned for years and imposed on an organization because of the change in environment. Now, everybody is more concentrating on sustainability in the organization. So this is again a change that they are bringing in the organizations. Now, organization change can also be drastic and completely transform the organization's operation, or it can be like done gradually after planning for years and years. Whether regardless of all these things, change means letting go of the old methods, the strategies, the ways that they were doing, and adapting to the new way of working in an organization. So when we are talking about change, it also involves people management in the organization. Now, what are the forces for change? Why do you think there is a requirement for an organization to change? So, first one, nature of workforce. So, organization change is basically a response to the change in the environment, you could say. So, organizations may find that their workforce ages, their benefits are shifting, and people may stay in the workforce beyond the retirement age, or work arrangements which are not like flexible hours and so on. So now if you look at it, nature of workforce, it could also be like the organization has realized, there are a lot of people who are more skilled than the existing employees, and if it requires the organization to train their employees on certain skill sets and so on, then again the organization will try and implement change. Employees here, when we are under this process, employees who are dissatisfied with the working environment, they choose to quit the organization, and employees who are willing to change along with the organization stay on with the organization. So when there is a when there is a workforce change, then definitely the business design will also change. The methods to keep the workers and the the aging population in the workforce will also change, and the developing solutions to deal with age related preconceptions, hurdles, or retention, all these could be like one of the key issues. So nature of workforce, you must have seen, first initially the retirement age was like 65 many years ago, then it came to 60, then it came to 58, and there's also something called voluntary retirement. So these are something the organizations are bringing in the, under the nature of workforce. The next one is technology. Organizations need to keep themselves updated with the technology. Sometimes the change is motivated with rapid development in technology. For example, if you just take the um, uh, let's talk about music, then initially they were like CDs which were there before. There was like tape recorder. I'm not talking about that, I'm going a little forward. And there were CDs, and after CDs came the DVD players. So music was stored in CDs and DVD players. After that, you know um, the Apple came up with this iTunes, if you are aware of what iTunes was. So if you wanted to listen to the music or something, then you could just go on to this software, this website of iTunes, and then you could buy music, you could download music from there. And now if you look at the current trend, there are so many apps that have come up which are providing free music for which you could listen to without even downloading. So there are a lot of apps which provide free downloads for the music and so on. So this is one example which was given. So organizations need to keep up with the technology. The next one is economic shocks. Sometimes the organization might have invested a lot of its stock in market on something. Stock is always sometimes riskier. So the economic stocks, the rise and fall of the stock could affect the organization, and the organization might be forced to change because of those things. uh, like in 2000 to the stock market collapsed, and there were like huge losses for the organization. So the organization had to change again accordingly, and all these are part of economic shocks. The next one is competition, which I would also say like globalization. I would also like to bring in globalization here. So globalization is another threat as well as an opportunity for the organizations to adapt to the changes. So organization or often find it cheaper to outsource their uh, you know outsource their projects, the goods and the services to some other countries which are cheaper, like uh, for example, a lot of the US companies, they outsource the call center thing to India and Philippines again, because their the employees are paid much lesser compared to the employees who are paid in that particular country, like US or something. So that is why some of the process or projects are outsourced to another country. Now, that is another change that an organization could bring in. And apart from that, the mergers, consolidations, growth of e-commerce, that has brought in a lot of competition. Hence, the organization has to change to match the e-commerce now. And obviously, there are a lot of global competitors in and around who would be looking at change. The next one is social trends. Now, if you see, before any communication by the government or anything, they would put it in the newspapers. And now the trend, the change, if you are seeing, if there's going to be a power cut or something, they just tweet it. If there's something, they just tweet it. Any communication also, the important communications are also happening through the tweets. So these are something the social trends. So organizations, if they want to improve their marketing strategies, if you see, if it's a new company, if they are entrepreneurs, they're using the social media, the old marketing method, they have come from that and they have adapted to the new methods with along with the change. Like you could say they're making reels. That's something which is trending right now. You could see them or something, doing something on the Facebook, going live, uh, uh, whatever that is called, like Facebook live, Instagram live, all those things. So this is like the change in the social trends. And world politics. Now, due to world politics, there are many market changes that have taken place. A very recent example is when this pandemic outbreak happened, many of the organizations withdrew their contract from China. Many of the organizations moved the well established setup that was in China to the other countries. So, these are some of the things which could be an example of world politics. Now, talking about resistant to change. Obviously, everybody is not open to change. Sometimes there will be resistance to change. For for an organization to remain in competition, it is necessary for the organization to adapt to the trending changes. So failing to change, definitely will have a bad impact on the organization. Employee may not always embrace the change that happens. So the greatest negative reaction to a suggested change is active resistance. Those who actively oppose change, they tend to be critics and be public about the new methods that have come up. But passive resistance, on the other hand, entitles like concern changes without necessarily expressing their feeling. They might be like, okay, this organization is changing. They may feel anxious about the change that is happening. They may be dissatisfied, but still they may be part of the organization, but they will try to look for another organization. So if you're looking at here, it says overt and immediate. That is, being very active, resistant to change. They start complaining about change. They start engaging in job actions. They may start, on bringing in all those groups and all that and start complaining about changes. Then passive resistant would be like, they might not be any organization citizenship behavior. They might show lack of motivation, lack of loyalty towards the organization. They might end up making a number of mistakes, and obviously for another organization where they are uh, more comfortable with. So overcoming resistance to change. Now these are some of the tactics which can be used to overcome the resistance to change. So the six tactics include education, communication, participation, facilitation, support, negotiation, manipulation, and cooptation and curation. So if you are looking at education and communication, now resistance to change could be uh, reduced through communicating with the employees to help them understand why the change is necessary, to help them understand the logic behind the change. And also, always when you are bringing in a change, ensure that the employees are told about the plus points of the change. How are the employees benefited? So this tactic of educating and communicating basically helps the employees from the misinformation or the gossips, what we call it avoids all these things. If employee receive complete details, the facts and figures of why this change is taking place, and all the misunderstandings are cleared between the employees, then the resistance will definitely subside. And communication can be achieved through one-on-one discussion, or memos, or group presentations, or reports, or even through emails explaining the change, why how does this work, and what is it going to be for the employees, and so on. Now, if you're bringing in a change, and if the employees are not educated and communicated, then there would be all false assumptions, and they would start having these uh, what do you call the they start working, and they start resisting. They would not accept what has been told to them, because no information has been given to them. The next tactic to deal with resistance to change is participation. Ensure that the individuals participate in the change. Prior to making the change, the employees can be bought into this decision making process. They can be bought in, and they can be explained what is required, and ask you know their inputs on the decision that have been made, and ensure that they are somewhere meaningfully contributing to the involvement of the change that is going to happen. So this will again bring down the resistance to change. The next, facilitation and support. Change agents can range from supportive efforts to reduce resistance. So when the employees are anxious about the change, and they fear, okay, now supposingly a change could be like a new company is taking over my company. So now the employees might be scared about their jobs, the job security. I don't know what is going to happen. Will they remove me, and will they bring in new people? So always provide enough support to the employees. Have counseling session, have therapy session. uh, Inform the employees that irrespective of another company taking over our company, a training will be provided to these existing employees, so that they can match the skill set of that particular company. So that again reduces the resistance to change. The next one is negotiation. So try and negotiate with the employees when you're bringing in the change. So negotiation is one of the powerful tactic, you could say. So you can tell the employees, this is why this change is important, and because we are bringing in this, we are going to offer you this. So we'll make sure that there's a win-win situation for the employee as well as the employer. Then manipulation refers to covert influence attempt. So if you are trying to threaten to close down a particular a factory, or an office or a branch, then the employee may fail to accept the pay cut, or that they will be uh, there would be downsizing of the organization. So make sure that you do not manipulate the employees, but make sure you offer them something in return, that they end up showing the organization citizenship behavior towards the organization. And the last tactic, coercion, that is application of the direct threats or force of resistance. So here, loss of promotion, negative performance evaluation, poor letter of recommendation, all these could be the reason of resistance to change. Ensure the employees that you would be able to provide them justice to the amount of effort and work they have put in, and definitely they would avoid showing the resistance to change. Now, the next one is the change model, the process of change. So we have Lewin's and Porter's process of change. So Lewin's is a three-step change model, which is unfreezing, moment, and refreezing. So unfreezing is the status quo, moment is the new state, and refreezing is the new change to make it permanent. So when you're unfreezing, ensure that the employees are ready for the change. And before the change, please remember, planning has to be done. Then when you're changing, ensure that it is executed and the intended change has been implemented. And when you're refreezing, ensure that the change has become permanent. So when you're unfreezing, obviously there would be a lot of resistance. There would be a lot of uh, mm, you know uh, uh, drama happening in the company, I would say. But ensure that you have provided enough information and your employees are ready for this change. The next one, during the change, obviously they will have to adapt to the new situation. They will have to adapt to the requirements, and hence you are there is a movement happening, there is a transition that is happening. And when you're refreezing, once you are understood, okay, now the transition happened, now employees have adapted, make the change permanent in the organization for a while. So the assumption is that change will encounter resistance. So executive change without preparation is definitely going to cause a failure. So organizations should start unfreezing, make sure that the organizational members are ready and receptive for the change that is going to take place. And this should be followed by executing the plan changes, and then refreezing, that is ensuring the changes become permanent, and the new habits and the structure and strategies, the rules and procedures have become a norm, and employees have started adapting it. Now, Courte's 8-stage process for change. Again, Levin came up with the 3-step model. Courter has come with 8-stage process of change. So Cotter proposed that companies should follow the 8 stages when bringing in a change. So he said, first, create a sense of urgency when you're introducing the change effort. So if there is no urgency, people might not want to change. Okay, so always create an urgency. Second, build a coalition that is with enough power to lead that particular change. Third, create a new vision for change and make sure the change is a part of the vision. So you can say these are the new vision and mission of the company, and this change, let it be a part of that vision what you are putting it. Communicate the vision throughout the organization to the employees. Communicate the plan for the change to the employees. Then eliminate the obstacles that are creating problems for the change. You can use the tactics over here. Create small wins, very much important. Make sure, a small achievement is also celebrated once the change has been implemented and adapted. Build on the change that is given, the seventh one. Always keep making improvements on the change. Always, uh, assess the change. Always bring in new things that are going well with your change. Then make change part of the culture, that is, bring in and demonstrate relationship between new behaviors and organization success. So this was about the process of change. Now, talking about action research. Action research is again, it's a change process based on systematic collection of data and then selection of a change action based on what analyzed data indicate. So by collaborating and integrating, uh, you know, uh, the entire diagnostic problem identification, experiential learning, and problem solving process. This action research is a valuable tool for bringing in or fostering organization change. So, the entire process of action research is action oriented. That you could say, like, it's with the goal of bringing in the change. The entire process of action research is processed. Then experimentation with multiple framework in practical situation, as well as application of various ideas in diverse contexts that demand change, are all part of this particular change process. Now, to put it in a simple way, the action research that are very much congruent with the Levin's three-step model, that is, uh, unfreezing, moving, and refreezing. So the action research would be like, first identify what is the necessity for the change, then implement the change, then evaluate and stabilize the change. Now, one example of action research, and which will also help us to understand the process of the action research. So supposingly, you have a company, okay, and you have hired a manager, a new human resource manager who is well experienced, and he has come to your organization. Now this manager is in charge of motivating the staff to work really hard and improve the productivity and the outcome of the organization. Now this human resource team and the manager have come up with a new study. They want to conduct this particular study and a new plan of having a 4-day week. Now, most of the organizations are following a 5-day week, correct? So now they want to implement this 4-day week to motivate the employees' morale and increase the productivity. Now, to study the plan when they implement it, then they also need to take part in this particular project. The managers, the human resource, also need to take part in this particular week. Now, in the 4-day week program. Now, this is known as the action research. So, action research, in other words, is also known as a participatory research, which entitles the employees to first identify the problem. That is, why is the productivity not increasing? Why are the employees not being motivated? Developing a solution, implementing the solution, and then analyzing the final outcomes of the solution. So, the steps followed are diagnosis, analysis, feedback, action planning, taking action, evaluating, and also specifying learning, that is organization learning, which we will do it next, or is the whole cycle of the action research. So now, if we are looking at the process of action research, first from diagnosis. The diagnosis is of the organizational issue is the first step in the action research process. The actual problem, that is why the employees are not able to perform better, why the employees are not motivated has been identified. And this starts with the action research. So now that the problem has been diagnosed, is it because of too much of workload, is it because of the 5-day work? So they thought, let us try this. So they analyzed the situation, they came back with the feedback for the situation, and they started with the action planning. So analyzing feedback, then they started with the action planning, which is the second step, or you could say like combining step 2 and step 3. I'm calling it a second step as action planning. So they establish various pathways of action. Now this human resource team, they were working for weeks to come up with several approaches to increase the staff morale. And once they analyzed and tried different methods, they thought, after conducting different interviews with different employees, understanding what their needs are, what they want, they came up with this flexible work timing and a 4-day work week. Now, the next step is to take actions, that is to implement the action. So they came up with the solution of implementing this action, and they adopted this 4-day work week with a 3-day weekend. Now again, obviously it was not just to boost their morale and all that, because the organization was also concentrating on the overall well-being of the employees. So, and also to promote work-life balance. In today's workforce, here we are doing overtime. We are working 5 to 6 days a week. We are working for almost 8 to 9 hours. Some of the organizations are also going like 10 hours work week. Then it becomes very difficult to have a proper work life balance. You're not able to concentrate on your family, and if you're staying further away from your office, the travel time, then you're tired by the end of the day, and you don't have time to perceive your own interest or hobbies or spend time with your loved ones. So again, that is one solution which the organization came up with to increase the morale of the organization. Now, once this action was implemented, the next stage was evaluation. And to evaluate, just give me a second. Okay. Somebody is unmuted. Please mute yourself. The next step is to evaluate. So once you've implemented the action, now you need to clarify how, when the new work has been implemented, and what are the timings the employees have to work on, and what are the days they have to work on, and how they would be able to enjoy this new implementation, the new change that the organization has adapted. After this, after the evaluation, then it's specified learning, which involves like how learning and results might be applied in the future to the organization difficulties. So once this work week was implemented, it was on a trial period, let's say for like a 3 month. Then it was whatever the challenges that came up, whatever the difficulties that were involved, like making modification, or it could be like, okay, let's have a hybrid model, which most of the organizations are planning now, like 3 days work from the organization and the next 2 days work from home, or either way around, or even in the 4-day work week, if the organization has to start something like flexi timings with half a day working in the office and half a day working at home, whatever it is, through the evaluation, the specific learning also can take place. Now, what are the action research benefit? One, always remember, this action research is not solution focused, but it is problem focused. And heavy employee involvement reduces resistance to change during the action research, because it's a participatory research. The last one is creating learning organization. What is a learning organization? It's an organization that has developed the continuous capacity to adapt and change. So a learning organization is an organization which is skilled at creating, acquiring, and transferring knowledge, and at modifying its behavior to reflect new knowledge and insight. That is, the organization is open to learning, is open to adapt to new change, is open to learn and adapt to new technology, new skills, new insights, new knowledge, and so on. So, organization learning can be thought of as a progression from no learning to full learning. Rigidity, insensitivity, and closed attitude towards sharing reality and experience are characteristics that involve no in the developmental stage. The whole learning stage is defined by openness, flexibility, adaptability to new events and experiences. The organization here in the learning organization, or the learning organization, or organization learning, what we call, they are open to adapt to new flexibility, and they refuse to show uh, rigidity and closed attitudes towards learning. The formation of learning organization is because of n number of forces and mechanisms as well. So the elements of learning organization include organization learning. It's a continuous process, it's an ongoing process which produces everlasting changes in several areas as a result of integrated initiatives. They are always open to change. They are always something that what you call continuous improvement. They are always open to continuous improvement. Organization learning involves three main subsystems. The first is acquisition of new inputs and analysis. The new input may include any change within the organization. The second, changes in the organization structure or technology as well. And this and the innovation, the third, innovation in the organization. So here, the new acquired innovation, the subsystem, the retention, and usage of the or usage or implementation of the new subsystem that has been learned. All these come under the characteristics or elements of the organization. Then the other characteristics as mentioned over here would include hold a shared vision. So the learning organization is willing to learn from the vision, whatever has been created, keep it open to learn and implement it in the vision, discard old ways of thinking, adapt to the new ways as trend according to the new trends. View organization as a system of relationships, communicate openly, do not keep it very confidential, and create unnecessary gossips and tensions and anxiety among the employees, and work together to achieve shared vision. Always ensure that the employees share the vision and work towards the vision along with the organization. It's not just the organization and only set of managers who have to work on this. It's the entire organization who can actively take part in it. So this was about organizational change. Any questions or doubts so far? Okay. If
I
not,
have one generic question.
sure.
Are these the PPTs that you are presenting, are they proprietary, or are you planning to share it with us?
I can share it. These are something which I had made along with few slides taken from human resource development thing. Please let me know how I can share it.
You can attach that PPT in the chat as an attachment directly.
Really? I've never done that. Let me try.
There is a document icon in the
Okay.
chat. Just click on that and you can share it right away.
Oh, great. Okay. Sure. Just give me a minute. So just let me know if you are able to download it.
Priyanka, this is Jagdish here.
Yeah.
Any specific number of people or the specific qualifications or any such things which are to be kept in mind before anything of what you mentioned couple of days have to be with a specific qualification or number of people, or how things have to be understood first before we get into the execution part of it? Because all of what you said is very detailed for a corporate which is not less than 100 or maybe 200 or 2000 or x 100x, right? But
Mm-hmm.
to even understand all of what you said in reference to implementing it, is
Mm-hmm.
there any minimum benchmark, like these many people have to be there, somebody has to be qualified from an MBA HR or some or other basic things before we can even think of this kind of things? Because not many would even have an exposure of what you are saying. I understand this is from a psychological standpoint. We are not covering into details, but the way you touched upon the subject is very detailed. So I was just wondering, are there any basic preliminary things to be kept in mind before we, because you use something as saying you need to use the right tool before you do something, right? Now, forget about tool. Now, this kind of insight has to be properly understood even before getting into practice, right?
Yes. Now I think you mixed up two things. So you're talking about the change in the organization, implementing the change in the organization, right? Jagdish?
Yes, Priyank.
Yeah. So, yeah. Now, if you're talking about implementing change in the organization and how many people is there any exact number of people and all that? See, one, the management, obviously, the board of directors and all that is there. That is okay. But there's also management and the managers who can be kept in loop about the changes that are happening. And the managers can convey a message to the other subordinates in the workplace regarding the change. Now, I also touched upon something like, participation to avoid resistance to change. Now, obviously, we can't expect all the employees to take part in the decision that for the change that is happening. So, ensure that the managers at each process level come together. There is a meeting, there is a discussion. Ensure you communicate what you want to communicate, help them to understand why the change is required, and ask them to pass on the message to the employees. And that could be done. Now, if you look at it, there are always these strikes that happen in the factories, manufacturing units or manufacturing plants. Most of the time, these workers, they go on a strike because they get to hear something about the change. They are not informed about the change. They hear some kind of unnecessary gossips. They hear something which is not true. There are misunderstandings. So it is very much important to clear those misunderstandings and be very transparent when you're bringing in a change. Hence, the union leaders can be involved along with the management to help them understand what the change is, why the change is necessary. So that is one way to put it across. Have I answered your question? Okay, I see somebody is asking me for all the PPTs. Let me just check if I can get.
For your information, we can download the one that you have already uploaded. Thank you for that.
Okay. I think the previous classes, I had used the PPT from the like I said, organization behavior from Robbins. You can just download that. Then yesterday's was something which I prepared, so I'll send you. Just give me a couple of minutes. And Jagdish, also just for your information, though we are covering all these things from psychology perspective, it says organization psychology, we do refer to the same books as a management course. So we do refer to Robbins and Stephen Robbins' organization behavior, which are the management students refer. We do refer to human resource management, Gary Dessler, which again the management refers. So, it's nothing like, just from the psychological perspective, we just need to do it because it includes both. Now, a vast difference, what I personally find in my organization is, see, I am also in one of the let's say in the operations. I would not disclose anything more than that, but there's also a person who is working along who has done an MBA. It's not like I don't have any knowledge on that, but the way we function is or the way we look at things is two different ways. I look at it from the psychological perspective, while he looks at only from, he just keeps talking about outcomes and productivity, and he just talks numbers. And on the other side, I talk not only numbers, but I also look into people management. I'm like, for me, it's more important to see how my staff are, how their well-being is, how much are they able to produce, and what I can what I can do to make their work easier. So it's the difference. The only difference between organization psychology and HR, I would say, is we look at it from human perspective, whereas they look at it only from in terms of number. Not all, I am saying, but some of them might.
And most of the content I can see is also from Fred Luthan's Organizational Behavior, which is part of the management course.
Sorry?
The content that we are looking at and what we were discussing, right? That is part of Fred Luthan's Organizational Behavior, which is also a part of management course. As you mentioned earlier, it is not specifically limited to the psychology, but it also like pertaining to a broader level of management skills as well.
Yes, true. All right, so I have sent another PPT yesterday as the conflict process. The other ones, the previous ones, probably I'll have to just look for them. I'll do it in the next class. So
I didn't see the second one. Sorry.
The conflict process.
Yeah, I mean, I can't see that.
Okay. One second. I think it's gone to. 1 second. Now?
Yes, now it's visible. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you all. See you in the next class.
Thank you.
Thank you, madam.